The sky over northern Europe is razor cold, the air so thin that German engines gasp for oxygen. Far below, Luftwaffe pilots shove their throttles forward, altimeters climbing, fuel draining fast. Frost creeps across their canopies as they strain toward the bright specks glinting in the upper blue. But the enemy stays impossibly high, a distant gleam they cannot touch. Suddenly, the lead American fighter flashes like a welding torch. 8 synchronized streams of heavy caliber fire rip outward in a solid sheet of destruction. A Focke-Wulf 190 Keller's wing shudders, takes 40 hits in seconds, and simply comes apart. No fireball, no smoke, just metal confetti fluttering through the stratosphere. It is April 15, 1943. In a single, stunning instant, the Luftwaffe meets a weapon it has never imagined. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a machine that will shatter German air doctrine and redefine modern aerial combat. The story of this jug, as pilots quickly nickname it, begins long before that spring morning. In late 1940, as Europe burns, the U.S. Army Air Corps calls for a fighter that can escort bombers at altitudes above 25,000 feet. Russian-born designer Alexander Sasha Kartveli at Republic Aviation sketches the answer on the back of an envelope. His concept is audacious. A massive single-seat fighter wrapped around a 2,300 horsepower Pratt and Whitney R 2,800 double Wasp engine and a complex turbo supercharger able to breathe in the stratosphere. On May 6, 1941, the prototype XP-47B takes flight. Top speed, 428 miles per hour. Range, 1,000 miles. 42,000 feet. Armament, 8. 50 caliber Browning M. 2 machine guns capable of firing more than 100 rounds every second. Republic's factories explode in scale to match the vision. From Farmingdale, New York, to Evansville, Indiana. Assembly lines roar to life. By 1944, they are producing 840 Thunderbolts a month, 28 per day, each built from 17,000 individual parts and more than 300,000 rivets. In all, 15,686 P-47s will roll off the lines, nearly half of all U.S. fighters sent overseas. When the first production P-47B Thunderbolts arrived in Britain in 1942, excitement was quickly tempered by skepticism. Pilots of the U.S. 8th Air Force, many of them veterans of Britain's nimble Supermarine Spitfire, climbed into the new fighter and immediately felt the difference. The P-47 was massive, nearly 7 tons fully loaded, with a broad fuselage and a big 4-bladed propeller. Taxiing for takeoff was awkward. The long nose and tail wheel stance created a blind spot that forced pilots to weave down the runway in S-turns just to see ahead. On climb out, it seemed slow to respond, heavy on the stick compared to the fingertip agility of a Spitfire. Seasoned flyers like Don Blakesley, who would become one of America's most celebrated fighter leaders, were blunt. After his first flight, he declared it was like hauling a freight car around the sky. British observers, noting its size and lack of a nose wheel, warned their American counterparts that the Jug was a death trap that could never survive against Messerschmitt Bf 109s or Focke-Wulf FW 190s. Even within US ranks, many wondered whether this giant single-engine aircraft, the heaviest fighter yet built, was a technological dead end. Those doubts began to fade as the Thunderbolt reached combat. On April 15, 1943, Blakesley himself shot down an FW-190 over Belgium, proving that in a dive, the P-47 could not be caught. Pilots learned that its bulk was not a weakness, but an asset. The huge Pratt & Whitney R 2,800 engine and rugged airframe could absorb punishment and keep flying. One pilot famously returned with 68 cannon holes in his machine. The Jug might lack the Spitfire's elegance, but it could dive faster than any German fighter and bring its pilot home, earning the respect, even affection, of those who once doubted it. Germany's air strategy is built on precision. The Luftwaffe believes machine guns are obsolete, favoring 20mm cannon that destroy with a few well-placed shells. But America brings the logic of assembly lines to the sky. Each P-47 carries 8 Brownings with 350 rounds apiece, 2,800 rounds total. In a 15-second burst, a Jug hurls 1,600 bullets, more than 170 pounds of metal and incendiary compound into an 8 by 12 foot kill zone. German fighters like the Bf-109G carry only 150 rounds for a single cannon and a few hundred for machine guns, good for 6 or 7 seconds of fire. Luftwaffe pilots must treat every trigger pull like gold. Thunderbolt pilots fire-ranging bursts, walk their fire onto targets, and still have ammunition left for multiple engagements. The contrast is psychological as well as mechanical. As German ace Adolf Galland later admits, "Every burst said, we have so much we can afford to waste it destroying you." The Jug was designed to fight where the air is thin. Its turbo-supercharged R-2800 keeps full power above 30,000 feet altitudes at which Daimler-Benz and BMW engines struggle. German controls stiffen, climb rates sag. P-47 pilots invent the high-altitude bounce, dive from 30,000 feet at 500 miles per hour, unleash a wall of fire, then use pure kinetic energy to rocket back to altitude. Egon Mayer, the Luftwaffe tactician who pioneered head-on bomber attacks, concedes, above 7,500 meters the advantage shifts completely to the Thunderbolts. They attack from above with impunity and climb back to safety before we can respond. Republic Aviation's production astonishes German intelligence. By mid-1943, its monthly output of P-47s equals nearly half of Germany's entire fighter production of every type. Each aircraft's 8 guns cost more than some complete German fighters. Jagdgeschwader Commander Josef Priller, initially dismissive, annotates captured reports with a grim note. If anything, these numbers appear conservative. We are facing industrial warfare on a scale we never imagined. The lesson is driven home on August 17, 1943. During the second Schweinfurt raid, 240 P-47s escorted B-17 bombers deep into Germany. Expecting the Americans to turn back as usual, JG-1 and JG-26 formations instead meet close-in escorts delivering 6,400 rounds of 50 caliber fire per minute. Wilhelm Ferdinand Galland describes the shock. The Thunderbolt's guns don't merely damage aircraft, they disintegrate them. June 6, 1944, D-Day. As Allied ships churned across the English Channel, the Luftwaffe could muster barely 319 sorties. Overhead, the U.S. 9th Air Force alone launched more than 2,000 P-47 Thunderbolt missions, an overwhelming aerial shield that made the difference on the beaches below. Armed with bombs, rockets, and 8 50 caliber machine guns, Thunderbolts became flying artillery for the soldiers storming Normandy. From first light, Jugs, cratered bridges, shredded rail yards, and obliterated German troop columns racing toward the invasion front. They roared over hedgerows at treetop level, ripping apart convoys and armor. Their concentrated firepower, described as like driving a 5-ton truck into a wall at 60 miles an hour, could tear through tanks, trucks, and locomotives in seconds. As Allied forces broke out of the beachheads and pushed across France, Belgium, and Holland, P-47s operated from hastily built forward airstrips, striking deeper each day. By war's end, they had destroyed or damaged 6,000 armored vehicles, 68,000 trucks, 9,000 locomotives, and 86,000 railway cars, all while suffering an overall loss rate of only 0.7%. For the men in the foxholes, the Thunderbolt was a guardian angel. For German soldiers and drivers, the ripping roar of 8 synchronized Brownings meant certain annihilation. Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski becomes America's leading ace in Europe with 31 victories, surviving hits that would down any other fighter. Hub Zemke's Wolfpack scores 665 kills. Don Blakesley logs more than 1,000 combat hours and 500 sorties. Despite nicknames like Big Ugly, 7-ton Milk Bottle, and Thunder Mug, pilots love the Jug. One says simply, "When flying the Jug, I always felt as if I was in my mother's arms. Many come home in aircraft shot to ribbons, 68 cannon holes in one case, proof of its near legendary toughness." By late 1944, the Luftwaffe was unraveling. Fuel shortages, limited flights to minutes, and replacement pilots arrived with barely 10 hours of fighter training. Against them stood seasoned American crews flying late-model P-47 with 2,800 horsepower engines and new K-14 computing gun sights that made deflection, shooting almost automatic. The result was slaughter, not dogfighting. Even Germany's revolutionary Me-262 jets offered little relief. Thunderbolt pilots simply loitered near jet bases and struck during takeoff or landing when the jet's speed advantage vanished. On New Year's Day, 1945, during Operation Bodenplatte, P-47s scrambled from forward fields and cut down retreating German formations, helping cost the Luftwaffe 271 aircraft and 143 irreplaceable pilots in a single day. By war's end, the P-47 had flown more than 500,000 sorties, destroyed thousands of enemy aircraft, and achieved a better than 4-to-1 kill ratio. The Luftwaffe's once formidable fighter arm was effectively annihilated. By war's end, P-47s had flown 545,000 combat sorties and 1.35 million hours, claimed 3,752 air-to-air victories, and destroyed more than 7,000 enemy aircraft on the ground. About 3,500 are lost to all causes, giving a combat exchange ratio better than 4-to-1. But the deeper impact is conceptual. The Thunderbolt proves that modern war favors nations able to mass-produce overwhelming force. German aces trained to win duels with surgical precision find themselves powerless before a machine designed to flood the sky with unstoppable fire. Production ceased in November 1945, yet the P-47's influence endures. A few serve in Korea, and many fly for Allied air forces for another decade. More importantly, they leave a permanent mark on military thought. As historian Williamson Murray notes, the P-47's 8 guns democratized air combat. Individual skill became secondary to industrial capacity. From that frigid morning over Belgium to the final sweeps across Germany and the Pacific, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt is more than a fighter. It is an airborne symbol of American industrial strength, proof that in the new age of warfare, abundance itself can be a weapon.